All righty. The date, November 8th, 1925. The time. Game starts promptly at 2:30. The teams, the Columbus Tigers and the New York Giants. The place, the Polo Grounds, New York City. Let's see here. Tickets were 50 cents, $1.10, $2.20, and $2.75. Let's see here. There was a band concert at 1:30, and the game starts promptly at 2:30. Tickets on sale. They're on sale at the office at 104 West 42nd Street. A.G. Spalding and all agencies. Get your tickets. Well, I'm sure they weren't sold out either. So they played. This is on November 8th. So this wound up being their fourth home game, the New York Giants. Let's see where we got here. The Giants played their first two games on the road. They played against the Providence Steamroller, and on their first game, official game ever, on October 11th. Then their next game was on Sunday, October 11th, 1925 was their first official ever game against the Providence Steamroller. Then the following, following Saturday, they played on the road against the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets in Philadelphia. Then their first official home game was Sunday, October 18th against the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets. They played back-to-back games. They played Saturday, October 17th, and Sunday, October 18th. Back-to-back games against the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets. Tough schedule, huh? Tough schedule. So they played against the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets, the Cleveland Bulldogs, and then they played the Buffalo Bisons. And now on Sunday, November 8th, they're playing the Columbus Tigers. Now, and also don't forget, this was basically in 8 days, if you include the following Sunday. You go from November 1st to November 8th, the Giants played 3 games. They played November 1st, then 2 days later on November 3rd, Tuesday, they played a game. And now here is the following Sunday, they played a game once again on November 8th. The reason why they played the game on Tuesday against the Buffalo Bison was because on October 25th, there was, I saw like, it was a bad storm, very bad storm, a lot of wind, a lot of rain. It was on Sunday, October 25th in New York. The storm affected just not New York City, affected many areas. It was a very bad storm. Some of the articles I saw was like, wind, in excess of 60 miles an hour. I also saw articles said the wind was in excess of about like 72 miles an hour. I saw another one that said the winds were like about 80 miles an hour. There was an article I saw that said it was a hurricane. So the video I did on October 25th, 1925, said the game was postponed. It said due to a hurricane. Now, whether it was actual hurricane or not, it was extremely windy. A lot of bad things happened. And not only in New York City, but in Maryland, in the surrounding area. It was a horrible, horrible situation. People died. So that's why they wound up playing. So the game was supposed to be played October 25th against the Buffalo Bisons. It got played. It actually wanted to be an election day, so it got played on November 3rd. So that's why the Giants are playing their third game in like 8 days, from Sunday to Sunday. 3 games they played, and this is their third game. So, but they would wind up winning, and actually, so this was their 6th overall game. And after they would win against the Columbus Tigers, they would even the record at 3-3. They started off 0-3, and then they played 9 more games, and they won 8 of their final 9 games. The biggest problem was I got a little something I'm going to read from a book here. The biggest problem was, they were winning, but they weren't winning at the box office or the ticket office, shall we say. People were coming in, but they didn't have a lot of people paying. They were giving away a lot of seats, and the amount of money that was being made at the ticket office was not enough to cover Tim Mara's expenses for the team, and he was losing a lot of money week in and week out. But there'll be a game would be coming toward the end of the season, second to last game of the season, that would basically save the Giants, and quite possibly, it's hard to say, obviously, because we're going back 100 years, but quite possibly might have just saved the Giants organization, from maybe having to go under, because they were in debt a lot. And there was one game toward the end of the season against the Chicago Bears, which saved the Giants, saved the whole season for the Giants as far as them. They finally got out of the red and into the black, but they were really in the red. And who knows, if things really got bad, maybe they might have had to go under. But it is what it is. But that's another video for another day. But against the Columbus Tigers here, the Columbus Tigers in 1925, they were not a very good team. And they were actually, in 1925, they were basically a traveling team. They played they played 9 games. They lost they lost all 9 games, and they were on the road for all 9 of the games. Let's see here. This is bad. They averaged 3.1 points per game, and they gave up 13.8 points per game. Let's see, out of their 9 games that they played, they were shut out 6 times. They were shut out. Surprisingly, though, the final game of the season, the Columbus Tigers, they lost and they played the Chicago Bears in Chicago, and they only lost by 1 point. They lost 14-13. That was their best game of the season. But they were not a very good team at all. As I said, in 1925, they were on the road every year. Now they did have, they did have a couple places that they actually called home. One was the West Side Athletic Club. There was another one where it was Indianola Park, I believe, because there's a picture. If you go to Wikipedia, there's a shows a picture of them playing a game in the 1910s, but actually it's the Columbus Panhandlers. They were playing a game, so they never really actually had like their own stadium per se. All right, as I said, they started off as the Columbus Panhandlers. Panhandles, I do apologize. The Columbus Panhandles were a professional American football team based in Columbus, Ohio. The club was founded in 1901 by workers at the Panhandle shops of the Pennsylvania Railroad. They were a part of the Ohio League from 1904 before folding after one season. 3 years later, the team tried again, playing in the Ohio League from 1907 to 1919. Not winning a championship before becoming charter members of the American Professional Football Association, which in 1922 became the NFL. The Panhandles are credited with playing in the first NFL game against the Dayton Triangles. A little bit of history there for you. They have no NFL championships, but Joseph Carr, who is a very important figure in the history of professional football, who was the team's owner from 1907 to 1922, he is enshrined in the Professional Football Hall of Fame for his work as the NFL president. So the Columbus Panhandles are credited with playing in the first NFL game against the Dayton Triangles. So there you go. The origins of the Columbus Panhandles / Columbus Tigers. The earliest existence of the Panhandles was in 1900. The Columbus Press Post reported Jack Walsh creating the Panhandle Railroad team, consisting of big, hardy railroad men. So that makes a lot of sense to me. No other articles in 1900 were written about the Panhandles. A game was scheduled for October 19th of the next year. However, no source provided an outcome. In 1901, managed by William Butler of the Ohio Medical University, the Panhandles played 2 games against the Columbus Barracks, a team consisting of local soldiers. The results were split. The first was a 2-6 loss. Wow. While the second was a 12-6 win. Butler left the Panhandles for unknown reasons, and the new manager for the 1902 season was Harry Greenwood. Greenwood placed advertisements in every newspaper he could in order to schedule games against local opponents. His ad read, "The Panhandle Athletic Club has organized a football team and would like to play any college, high school, or manufacturing team on Saturday or Sunday." As a result, the Panhandles scheduled 4 games in 1902, 3 against the Columbus Barracks and 1 against the Denison Panhandles, and finished with a record of 0-3-1. Again, the Panhandles got a new manager for the 1903 season. It was E.E. Greist. I say Greist. Greist needed help with the team, so he hired Ben Chamberlain to coach the team. After an exhibition game against the Ohio State Buckeyes, the Panhandles won their first game of the season, a 38-0 victory over Neal Avenue Athletic Club. The victory gave the team some unexpected press. The Columbus Citizen wrote the first article praising the team. The Panhandles' 1903 season ended with a record of 5-3. Now comes when Joseph Carr enters. 1904, Joseph Carr, who was a sports writer for the Ohio State Journal and manager of the Railroads baseball team, the famous Panhandle White Sox, famous, of course, took over the football team. However, the Panhandles didn't take off, and the team played just 2 games. Carr tried again 3 years later in 1907. Carr saw the potential for professional football not only to be a great spectator sport, but also to become a successful business venture, and envisioned pro football being just as popular as Major League Baseball. One of the first things Carr did when he became the owner of the Panhandles was to exploit one of the railroad's policies. Since most of the team's players were employed by the railroad, they could ride the train free of charge. Because of this perk, Carr was able to schedule mostly road games, eliminating the expense of stadium rental, which was huge. Eliminating the expenses of game rental, game promotion, and security for the field. While the team did not play the majority of their games on the road as a traveling team, their home games were played at Indianola Park. Now, this was early on. The Panhandles adopted an amateur sandlot mentality for their playing style. Since the team was composed mainly of railroad workers, the scenario gave the players limited time to practice and prepare for games. The Panhandles did the majority of their preparation during their lunch breaks. Workers had a 1-hour break during a normal workday, and the players on the team usually took the first 15 minutes to eat lunch and used the remaining 45 minutes to practice football. An athletic field behind the railroad shops in Columbus became the team's practice field. Here, this is the Nessers of if you familiar with the history, not many people go back this far or whatever, but the Nessers was brothers, many brothers. Famous for had many brothers playing football. However, Carr knew that if this team was to succeed, he needed an attraction. Carr built his team around pro football's most famous family, the Nesser brothers, who were already drawing crowds throughout the country. Carr used the 7 Nesser brothers as the backbone of the Panhandles, and the football-playing family remained in that role for nearly 20 years. None of the Nessers attended college despite many offers. The 7 Nesser brothers, who worked as Boilermakers for the Pennsylvania Railroad, were exceptionally large and strong for people living in the early 20th century. Frank Nesser was 6 foot 1 inch tall and was 235 pounds. They all were exceptionally great athletes for their time. Carr took out ads describing the Panhandles as the toughest professional team in football, led by the famous Nesser brothers. In 1921, the Panhandles lineup included player coach Ted Nesser and his son Charlie. It is the only time in NFL history father and son played together on the same team. So a little more history there for you. Right? 1921, the Columbus Panhandles lineup included a player coach Ted Nesser and his son Charlie. Father and son. 1921, the only time in NFL history. I mean, the Griffeys did it in baseball. But in football, 1921 was the only time. Let's see. And interestingly enough, the Nesser brothers' nephew, Ted Hopkins, and brother-in-law, John Schneider, also played on the team. The Panhandles roster did not include many former college players or All-Americans, which the Giants team did. So the athletic field in the railroad yards was the place where the team found out who could play. The team's dirty reputation was learned and developed on the railroad yards, not in college stadiums. The press sometimes criticized the Panhandles for their rough play, but it was a big draw for the fans and main reason why many paid to attend the games, which was huge, absolutely huge. And I'm going to, as I said, I'm going to go on going over a little thing here in this book here, which is going to show you, the importance of paid attendance. Now, it says the Columbus City Champs era. Over a span of 20 years, the Panhandles were considered the best pro team in the city of Columbus. The team compiled a 33-5 record against opponents from Columbus, including a 32-1 record over their last 33 games. Between 1914 and 1916, which was seen as best years of the franchise, the Nesser-led team went a combined 22-10-1. The majority of their early pro teams would go out of their way to schedule the Panhandles, as they knew it would be easy to advertise a game featuring the famous Nesser brothers. In 1915, the Panhandles were rumored to have played against the legendary Knute Rockne 6 times in 1915. According to the team, each time they played Rockne, he was on a different team. This rumor, however, is false. Rockne was too much of a family man to play that much pro football, and Notre Dame had most of its home games during the pro football season. All right, so the NFL. Here we go. On August 20th, 1920, a meeting attended by representatives of 4 Ohio League teams, the Canton Bulldogs, the Cleveland Tigers, the Dayton Triangles, and the Akron Pros, was held. At the meeting, the representatives tentatively agreed to introduce a salary cap for the teams, not to sign college players nor players under contract with another team, and became united as the American Professional Football Conference. They then contacted other major professional teams and invited them to a meeting in September, on September 17th. At the meeting in September, held at Ralph Hayes Hupmobile Showroom, representatives of the Rock Island Independents, the Muncie Flyers, the Decatur Staleys, and the Massillon Tigers, the Chicago Cardinals, the Rochester Jeffersons, and the Hammond Pros were present. The following was achieved. The name of the American Professional Football Association was chosen. Officers of the league were elected with Jim Thorpe as president. A membership fee of $100 was set. A committee to draft a constitution was named. The secretary of the league was to receive a list of all the players used during the season by January 1st, 1921, and a trophy that would be awarded to the league champions. During this time, the Panhandles were admitted into the league. The first APFA game. The Panhandles may have played in the first game with 2 APFA opponents. However, due to not having the game start at a standardized time and the failure of the future NFL to record the start times, historians cannot determine for sure which 2 teams played in the first league matchup. What is known for a fact is that the first contest between teams listed as APFA members occurred on October 3rd, 1920. So it was either on this date. The Panhandles were defeated by the Dayton Triangles 14-0 at Triangle Park. And the Rock Island Independents beat the Muncie Flyers 45-0 in Rock Island. Frank Bacon of the Triangles is credited with the first punt return for a touchdown. Okay, there you go. So they might have played because they don't know exactly what time the game started. So the Panhandles might have actually played in the first ever game. Might have. It was 1 of 2 games. So they might have played at the same time. They might have started at the same time. So the Columbus Tigers, following the 1921 season, Carr became the league's new president and renamed the APFA the NFL. So 1920 and 1921, it was known as the APFA. Starting in 1922, it was the NFL. He then discontinued the Panhandles after the 1922 season because of the cost and the salary demands. Following the 1922 season, the Panhandles became the Columbus Tigers. In 1923, the Tigers attained the best ranking in the NFL, finishing 8th. So, I mean, they were never very good. I mean, the best finish ever was 8th. During that season, multiple players won awards. Rookie ends Gus Tebble, who was also the coach, was awarded first team All-NFL by the Canton Daily News as well as the Green Bay Press Gazette. Gus Sonnenberg, Paul Goebel, Jack Sack, and Bob Rapp were all awarded first team All-NFL by the Canton Daily News. Pete Stinchcomb was awarded second team All-NFL by Collier's Eye. During this time, and at the time of the team folding, Jerry Corcoran was owner of the Tigers. The next season, they finished 10th. Boney Petkoff was awarded first team All-NFL by the Green Bay Press Gazette. Petkoff and Paul Goebel were both awarded second team All-NFL by the Green Bay Press Gazette, with the latter being awarded second team All-NFL by the Collier's Eye as well. Then the Tigers ended their final 2 seasons 20th and 19th, respectively. So, they were around for quite a while, but the last 2 seasons were 1925 and 1926. In 1925, they finished 0-9. 1926, they were 1-6. So basically, in their final 2 seasons, they were 1-15. And that's pretty much. It doesn't say their final 2 seasons. Because I guess. They were absolutely horrible. Doesn't say because of money or this or that or whatever. But so 1926 was the they were pretty much the Columbus Panhandles from 1901 to 1922. Then 1923, 24, 25, and 26, they were the Columbus Tigers. They finished 8th in 1923 with a record of 5-4-1. 1924, they were 4-4-1. And then in 1925, this season, which we're talking about, they were 0-9-1. I mean, they were not very, very good at all. Let's see. It says the Columbus Panhandles playing a game in the 1910s at Indianola Park. I know they also, at Indianola Park, it went through some revitalization quite a bit. I mean, it was a park. Its original configuration, the park featured a dance pavilion, a very large swimming pool, in a figure eight roller coaster, a carousel, a scenic railroad, a band shell, a restaurant, concession stands, picnic grounds, and athletic playing fields such as tennis courts, a football field, and a baseball diamond. So I don't even, to tell you the truth, if it had even had stands, I'm not sure. But it was a big, it was it was literally just a park. I mean, with a football field and all this and everything on it. Had a lot going for it. Let's see. In 1908, a theater was added. There was also hot air balloon, the tightrope walking, outdoor cinema, live presentations of distance sporting events, infant beauty pageants, massive fireworks extravaganzas was also part of the park's draw. A year later, the park underwent major renovations. The band shell area was expanded, and the shoot ride, the Blue Streak roller coaster, and a human laundry funhouse were added. There we go. For the next 5 years, the park was the home field for the Columbus Panhandles, an early professional football team. Let's see, Indianola enjoyed sustained popularity through the 1910s, and that's when basically the Panhandles were playing there. Crowds as large as 10,000 flocked to the park on weekends, with up to 5,000 in the pool alone on hot summer days. It was a big pool, 5,000 people. Whew. And in the winter, the dance pavilion remained popular. There was a national dance craze launched by and in 1918, the park even hosted the Ohio State Buckeyes men's basketball games. So it was a huge, huge park. In 1948, it turned into a shopping center. And also, I know the pool wound up, as time went by, the pool got filled in and it became a parking lot. Because back then, obviously, 1910 or whatever, they don't need a parking lot for cars. I mean, a lot of people weren't driving cars in 1908 and all, to the park. So, but after a certain while, the pool got filled in and it became a parking lot. So that's where the pretty much the Panhandles played back early on. 1925, I said they were pretty much a traveling team. But in 1924, they also played a couple games. For the most part, they were a traveling team. But they played in the West Side Athletic Club. 1924, the Akron Pros played the Columbus Tigers at the West Side Athletic Club. And it said for that one game, there was 3,000 in attendance there. Not many people were there. In 1924, the Columbus Tigers, they played 2 home games. They played the Akron Pros, and they played the Rochester Jeffersons, which they beat as well. They beat at the West Side Athletic Club. But I mean, for the most part, the Columbus Tigers were a team that they were on the road. They were a road team. But also, as I said, oh, Teddy's here. Boy, I hope you're right there, Teddy. I hope the Giants. I certainly hope so, brother. They better play better than they did against the Cowboys opening day. That's for sure. But with their owner was Joseph Carr. He pretty much had them being a travel team, which I'm going to go over this one article here in just a second here. It was a lot of money, because when Tim Mara, he bought the Giants for $500. He had back then he had money, and dishing out the $500. Okay, great, I got myself a team. No, that was just, I guess, to buy whatever the rights to the team or whatever. I mean, it didn't include nothing else, nothing. Like you wanted footballs, you got to go buy them. You wanted players, you have to start paying them. You want to play in a field in a stadium, you got to rent it out. I don't know what the rent was. I haven't seen anywhere what exactly known. I don't know what it costs to rent out the Polo Grounds in 1925. But, I mean, if you're going to have, whatever, anything, you had to buy uniforms. I'm going to go over here in a second. You had uniforms. You had to repair the uniforms. You had to get the, once again, in this article here, this book here, you got to get the uniforms washed. There's all kinds of things that he had to pay for on a weekly basis. And if you did not have a paying crowd coming in, you're in a lot of trouble. And he found out, Tim Mara found out, he was losing money week in and week out. Week in and week out. So just buying the Giants did not, okay, great. So I get the Polo Grounds with my $500 and all the players are paid and the uniforms. No. So let me read this little article here. Okay. This is kind of funny here. So I got to find out where. Okay. It says in the next two games, both at the Polo Grounds, the Giants defeated the Buffalo Bison 7-0 and the Columbus Tigers 19-0, which is the game we're going to talk about, the 19-0. But the attendance plunged even lower. The night before the Columbus game, a policeman spotted two youngsters walking across the bridge from the Polo Grounds to the Bronx, carrying a large bag between them. "What do you think you're doing out here this late?" said the policeman. And the two kids said, "Nothing," answered one of the boys. "We're just carrying some dirty laundry." "Okay," said the policeman. "Let's have a look." He had a look, and inside the bag were 20 New York Giants scarlet and blue jerseys and 8 pairs of cleats. The Giants got their uniforms back an hour before the game. So, they had some kids go, I guess, and get their jerseys, cleaned. And, so they had to pay for that, right? But that just goes to show you, had two kids carrying a bag full of uniforms across a bridge with some cleats in it, getting it back to the team. or they were taking them to get laundried, and then they brought them back, walking across a bridge. That ain't happening nowadays. Let's see here. The Giants got their uniforms back an hour before the game, meaning this game here, the Columbus Tiger game. But so the Giants got their uniforms back an hour before the game, but Mara and the players would have been happier if they had never showed up. The weather was miserable and the crowd less than 1,200 paid. That's not good. Not good at all. Was worse. To add to their problems, it was the roughest game of the season. Yes, it was. On the first series of plays, Hinkie Haynes returned a punt 22 yards, was hit by a flying elbow, and left the game with a bloodied face and a broken nose. Now, in the article I'm going to read, it says that Hinkie Haynes is going to miss the season. He didn't miss the season. I think he might have missed one game. He played in 11 out of the 12 games for the Giants. So if he missed any time at all, he might have missed one game. But this was a tough game here. Tough game. 60 minutes later, after the Columbus Tiger game was over, a dozen Giants and Tigers had been helped to the dressing room. Tough game. McBride continued to dominate the Giants' offense with bruising bucks, precise placements, and pinpoint passes. But rugged Joe Alexander turned in the play of the game. One of the first linemen ever to play a roving center on defense, Alexander picked off a pass against the Tigers, stiff-armed one tackler, and lumbered 50 yards for a touchdown. Mara, still a novice at football, was more appreciative of the brawling. That was one hell of a fight, he said. Even if the Shully Labs were missing. I'm not sure. To operate in New York each week, Mara needed at least $4,000 every week to cover the Giants' expenses and another $2,500 to $6,000 to meet visitors' guarantees. So each team that came in, he guaranteed them like whatever. So, I mean, you figure he might have guaranteed, like the Bears came in. The Bears were guaranteed like maybe $5,000. For us to show up, we need $5,000. But the Columbus, they might have owed them $2,500 because they weren't much of a draw. So Tim Mara, you come here, I guarantee you $2,500. Well, they only had $1,200 paid, and the tickets were 50 cents and $1.10, maybe $2. Right at the most, he made $2,500. All that money went to the other team. But as I said, Mara needed at least $4,000 each week. He needed at least $4,000 just to cover the Giants' costs. So if all the money for the tickets went to the Columbus Tigers, where's he coming up with his other $4,000 from? He's got to take it out of his own pocket. So this game here he probably lost $4 or $5 grand just from this one game. It ain't the way it is nowadays, though. I mean, back then it was different. That's why so many teams went under. And after checking the receipts of the Columbus game, he began to run out of capital and patience. That's why this game I'm going to talk about toward the end of the season, I'll be doing it in maybe a week or so, whatever. Again, when they played at the Polo Grounds against Red Grange and the Chicago Bears, might quite possibly have just saved the Giants in existence. That's one game. Even if he didn't know football, he did know promotion, and he knew the Giants didn't have a personality he could sell. Hinkie Haynes was an exciting young athlete, but New Yorkers obviously weren't going to pay their way to watch him. So, for the last 3 years, Mara had been hearing of the exploits of Harold Red Grange, the galloping ghost of the University of Illinois, who would be playing his final college game early in November to permit him to play at least 4 professional games if he could be signed. Mara tried to sign him. He couldn't. So we'll go over that as time goes by. But that just goes to show you, how much you needed. I don't know how much it costs to rent out the Polo Grounds, but he needed at least $4,000 every week just to cover his own expenses. And then if a team came in, right, he was owed them so much money. So he was losing money like almost every week. It was tough. It was tough, very tough to survive back then. That's why so many teams, went under. And but you also see is the Columbus Tigers. That's why they were a traveling team. They didn't have to worry about promoting the game, putting stuff in newspapers, come see us play at home. They didn't have to go out and rent out a stadium, all that stuff. So they saved themselves some money. So a lot of what they had to pay the Columbus Tigers pretty much was they had to pay their players, right? Whatever the cost, I guess maybe to travel back and forth, which obviously wasn't much back then. But they stayed at a hotel, I guess, and footballs and stuff. So they kept their costs down to a minimum. But they were not a very good team, so that's why each week when they played, they weren't guaranteed that much money. But you figure if they only had like 20 players on their team the whole season, which is a small amount. Let's see here, I got it here somewhere. Small amount of players. I mean, the Giants had 29 guys. Here we go, the roster. The Giants had 29 on their roster for the whole team. For the whole year. The Columbus Tigers, I believe it was 20. Yeah, they had a small roster. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. They had 20. Columbus Tigers had 20 guys play on their roster the whole season long. And I said the Giants had 29. So the Giants had a lot. But, I said if the Columbus Tigers, they got $2,500 each week just to play. If they had like whatever, 15, 16, 17, 18 guys that paid $50 to $100 a game, you can see where $1,500 or whatever, went out to the players, right? But then all the other stuff, ate into that as well. That maybe the traveling, they had to buy footballs, had to get the uniforms washed and all that stuff. So at the end of the week, the owner of the Columbus Tigers, maybe made $100, maybe. It's not the way it is nowadays. Nowadays, there's the TV rights and all that stuff, and every team is guaranteed. You get so much money each year. It wasn't like that back then. That's why so many teams went under. All right, we got here. That just goes to show you. There's an article here. It says at the top of this page, it says Stark's 5 goals help U.S. beat Canada at soccer 6-1. So the big picture here on this article is the U.S. team beat Canada in soccer 6-1, and underneath that, New York crushes Columbus 19-0. So the soccer team, the USA soccer team, gets got more publicity than the Giants did in this New York paper right here. New York crushes Columbus 19-0. 4,000 watched the Giants plow through the mud to their third straight victory. Now 4,000, but remember, about 1,200 paid. So it was like 2,800 people got free tickets to come to this game. Haynes and Goble got hurt. Haynes fractured his nose, and the Tiger end twists his ankle. Alexander runs 50 yards for a touchdown. Playing on a soaking wet field in the rain that poured for the greater part of the afternoon, the New York Football Giants won their third victory in 6 starts. They'd beat the Cleveland Bulldogs 19-0. Then they beat the Buffalo Bisons on Tuesday. They beat them 7-0, and here they won. They beat the Columbus Tigers here 19-0. So actually, 2 of their 3 victories were 19-0. They won their third victory in 6 starts in the National Football League yesterday at the Polo Grounds, defeating the Columbus Tigers 19-0. In spite of the inclement weather, 4,000 fans turned out to see the game. 4,000. They were well rewarded for their efforts and loyalty, for the game was perhaps the hardest fought of the local season. So thoroughly did the men put their heart into the play that 2 of them were compelled to leave the game through injuries. Hinkie Haynes, former Penn State star, who has become the idol of the crowds that have attended the contest, suffered a slight fracture of the nose at the very outset after making a 22-yard run back of a punt. That's when he caught the flying elbow. It was thought that Haynes would be lost for several weeks, but it was stated after the contest that the Penn State star would be able to play if needed on Wednesday, Armistice Day, when the Giants meet the Rochester Jeffersons at the Polo Grounds. Let's see here. Goble follows Haynes. Before the first quarter was over, Goble of Michigan, the visitors' right end, followed Haynes out of the game with a twisted ankle. Considering the fierceness and pugnacity with which the men fought and the fact that the field was so slippery, it was to be wondered that there were not more injuries than these 2. The Columbus forwards showed a lot of fight at the outset, but met more than their match in the strong All-American line of Bob Folwell. Rapp, quarterback, was the shining light of the visitors. So the Columbus Tigers, their quarterback was Rapp, R-A-P-P. He was the shining light of the visitors. He ran the ends for long gains, and his brilliant handling of passes several times put Columbus in a position to score. Only once was the New York goal line really in danger. That was when a 35-yard pass from Lynch to Rapp gave the Tigers the ball on New York's 17-yard line. In 3 downs, however, they were able to make only 1 yard, and Hendrian intercepted a pass on 4th down. So I guess they didn't try to kick a field goal. Hendrian scored the first touchdown a few minutes after the game got underway. After Haynes had carried a punt back to midfield, McBride made a first down and then threw a 35-yard pass to Hendrian, who made his way to the goal line with the aid of destructive interference from the safety man. McBride kicked a goal from placement for the extra point. There was no more scoring in this period, nor in the second and the third quarters. The two teams fought tooth and nail up and down the field, exchanging kicks constantly. Giants attempt a field goal. Ooh, there you go. New York lost an opportunity to score early in the third period when Jappy of Syracuse intercepted a pass and ran to the Columbus 21-yard mark. Benkert on the first play reversed his field twice in pretty fashion and planted the ball on the 12-yard line. It looked as though the Giants were going to score, but Brennan, who went in for McBride, fumbled and Columbus recovered. A beautiful lateral pass from Benkert to Hendrian on an end run started the Giants down the field again. But Columbus proved a stone wall and New York attempted a drop kick, which was blocked. The Tigers, unable to gain, kicked to Benkert, who ran the ball back 15 yards to Columbus's 35-yard line. Bomar on the end-around play made a first down, and Benkert added 7 yards. On the next play, Rooney broke through the center of the line and went over for a touchdown. It was getting so dark that the lights had to be turned on. Shortly after, Alexander intercepted a pass and ran 50 yards for a touchdown. So they were very lucky that they had the lights. But it was obviously with it being a storm, being dark and everything, it got so dark they had to turn the lights on. So the Giants scored 7 points in the first quarter, and then they scored 2 touchdowns, and they missed both extra points in the fourth quarter. So that's how they scored 7 in the first, 12 in the fourth, and they won 19-0. Now we got here looks like left end is Jappy. These for the Giants. Milstead was the left tackle. Tomlin was the left guard. Alexander was the Giants center. Doc Alexander, would be the Giants head coach in the 1926 season. Bednar was the right guard. Parnell was the right tackle. Bomar was the right end. Hendrian was the quarterback. Haynes started out the game, was the left halfback. Benkert was the right halfback, and McBride was the fullback for the Giants. For Columbus, Rue, I guess maybe was the left end. Ellis was the left tackle. Rollader was the left guard. Nemec was the center. Molbarger was the right guard. Petkoff was the right tackle. Goebel was the right end. Rapp was the quarterback. Lawrence Tynes, maybe, right? Tynes was the left halfback. Lynch was the right halfback, and Nesser was their fullback. Let's see here. Well, interesting here. It says, let's see. What do we have? Substitutions. The Giants had 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like 5 substitutions they had. Columbus had 1, 2. Looks like they had 3 substitutes. So it was a grand total, looks like about 8 substitutes for the whole game. Other than that, everybody played all 22 minutes, all 60 minutes. But interesting here, it says the time of the periods was 15 minutes and 12 minutes. I'm kind of wondering what the heck that meant. So I guess in the beginning it was 15 minutes, but I don't know, maybe toward the end of the game they decided just to make them 12 minutes. I'm not exactly sure. It said the time of the periods were 15 minutes and 12 minutes. Interesting. All right, so this other article is the last one I got here. Giants beat Tigers in the mud, 19-0. Now this one here, it says, Hinkie Haynes, star halfback, out for season, which is not true. Playing in a driving rainstorm, which fell continuously throughout the game and converted the field at the Polo Grounds into a swamp, Billy Gibson's Grid Giants scored their 3rd straight triumph in National Professional Football League yesterday by taming the highly touted Columbus Tigers 19-0. Weather conditions were ideal for a Lipton Cup race. Close to 3,000 waterlogged fans braved the pelting rain. Now here it says 3,000. In the other article it said 4,000. So it was anywhere between 3,000 and 4,000 people. They braved the pelting rain through the first half, but by the time the game ended, more than half of them had fled the dreary scene. So by the time the game was over, there might have been maybe 1,000, 1,500 people left in the stands. So this is a huge stadium, too, the Polo Grounds. So you got 1,500 people left by the end of the game. There were many fumbles. Fumbles were plentiful, but the Giants qualified as expert mudders by scoring 3 touchdowns despite the slippery going and the early loss of Hinkie Haynes, one of their most brilliant halfbacks. Haynes' nose was broken when his face was smeared in the mud shortly after the kickoff. So here it says shortly after the kickoff, but in the other article it said he was returning a punt. And I also read in the article he here it says he got smeared in the mud and broke his nose. The other one, it was a flying elbow. So returning a punt. So it is what it is. So Haynes' nose was broken when his face was smeared in the mud shortly after the kickoff, and he was forced out of the game, probably for the balance of the season, which is not true. He missed 1 game all season long. He played in 11 out of 12 games. So, led by Rapp, the diminutive back who topped the league in scoring last season in 1924, the Tigers presented a strong combination, but it wasn't quite formidable enough to cope with the highly geared, smooth-working machine directed by Bob Folwell, who is the Giants coach. Bob Folwell, he's the Giants coach for 1925. It says, past does it. The Giants juggernaut swung into action early in the first period. A varied line attack advanced the ball to the Tigers' 40-yard line, where Jack McBride hurled a neat forward pass to Dutch Hendrian, who, with the aid of superb interference, dashed 30 yards for the first touchdown. I love the way they explain this stuff. McBride also accounted for the extra point. So with Jack McBride kicking the extra point, it was 7-0. Columbus made 2 menacing gestures at this period. Rapp attempted a field goal from the 20-yard line, but missed. So the Tigers they tried a 20-yard field goal, and they missed it. During the last few minutes of play, the visitors tried to pass their way over the Giants' goal from the 10-yard stripe, not the 10-yard line, the 10-yard stripe. But the vigilant Mr. Hendrian snared the rain-soaked leather and ran it back 20 yards. After being held in check for 2 periods, the Giants reared up again in the final quarter and scored 2 touchdowns. Ronnie reeled off the first one after touring right end for 20 yards, and Alexander accounted for the final score when he intercepted a forward pass in midfield and scampered 50 yards through a broken field for the final touchdown. Very interesting. Now here it says times of period. It says 15 minutes each. So it's weird. It's weird. One article says it was 15 minutes and 12 minutes. This article says they were all 15 minutes each. This article also says Hinkie Haynes was injured and he was missed the whole season. And then the other article winds up saying Hinkie Haynes was out, he broke his nose, this, that, and the other thing, but he could come back and play. So it's like, it's it is what it is. But so after this game, the Giants wind up let's see here. Obviously they were 3-3. And then they would wind up playing, once again, it just goes to show you. I mean, they wind up playing 3 days later. So they played on Sunday, November 1st. Then they played Tuesday, November 3rd. Then they played Sunday, November 8th. And their next game would be Wednesday, November 11th against the Rochester Jeffersons at home at the Polo Grounds. So, but at least the Giants, after this game here, they evened their record at 3 wins and 3 losses. And better times would be still ahead. But just to go to show you, just because the Giants were, playing football doesn't mean unfortunately for them, doesn't mean they were making money. So, but that pretty much wraps up this here, right? On this date, November 8th, 1925 in New York Football Giants history. I'll see you next time.